why is a 7 out of 10 game considered bad? And what should each number mean from 1 to 10?
Just want to, at the top of this, a 7 out of 10 game is not bad.
Correct.
A 7 out of 10 game is most games that come out.
Correct.
Right.
It's a weird topic because the scoring system being out of 100 is kind of what makes people think like, oh, well, if it scores a 70, well, hell, you've lost 30% of the score right there on it. It's like, no, that's just, it's like, it's very rare for a game to enter into the 90s, really. And the upper 90s or 100, damn near impossible.
Yeah.
Game's got to be a masterpiece, a generational game for that.
True.
So it's kind of like it's like people judge games out of being out of 100 when realistically it's like the bar is kind of set at like an 85 is around there of what I would say a lot of games that come out there between a 70 and an 85.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which that's kind of the bar for the average game that comes out. A 7 out of 10 game, there's nothing wrong with.
Yeah.
It's like I would almost, in my opinion, anything 7 or higher, perfectly fine game. I have no issue with. You start getting under that, and then it's like something has gone wrong, or there is at least something in the game, core of the game, that makes it feel like it's not up to the standard of an average game.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree with every single word that you just said, and it blows me away every time we have some game comes out that's just like I look at it and like that looks like a fun game, and that's kind of the end of my mindset. But then it comes out with like an 80 or like in the 70s Metacritic range, or it's like a 7 out of 10, and everyone is just like, oh, this game fucking sucks.
I will say, even on this show, we've been a little guilty of like when we read Metacritic scores, if we see like a 75 or something, we'll be like, oof. But that's just because, like, usually it's on a big, hyped up upcoming release that we're even looking at that for. So we're hoping it's a little higher than that.
Yeah.
Those are the games we want to be the 90s,
Right.
and it's not happening. That's just from our perspective, or at least from my perspective in that sense. That's where the oof is coming from. I wanted a 90 and I'm getting a 75.
Right.
And that's mostly, as you said, some games that are very much hyped up, and we're seeing a lot of bagging advertisement for it. And it's just like, it's supposed to be something that's supposed to be one of the top games of the year, ideally. And then Metacritic's just like, yeah, 75 or on the very low end, 65. And we're just like, oof.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, personally, like, I would say not necessarily, like, the 9 is kind of the borderline. I would say like a 9.5 to a 10. We get a handful of those a year in a good year.
In a good year.
In most years, we don't get a handful. But it's like, in my opinion, those are the games that those games come out. Those are your Game of the Year nominees.
Correct.
Exactly.
Correct.
It's like, and if you have a year where, like, you don't have any, like, high 90s or anything like that, it's like, okay, well, what are the best? It's like, okay, let's look at the low 90s. Let's look at the high 80s. What do we have to pick from out of these choices?
8.75s we got this year.
Yeah.
But it's like that high 90s. That's reserved for the best of the best to come out in the like recent decade. Mm-hmm. So it's like, yeah, even then, score a 9 out of 10 or a high 80. I mean, that's you're top of the food chain right there.
Yeah, you're having a good time. And, just a couple things that I've thought about going into this topic where it's like, first, like, because you jogged my memory when it's like, oh, we've been guilty of the Metacritic thing. I think one little, very niche thing, and that I could see people relating to of when they see like a 70s score on Metacritic, and this is going to sound really dumb, but hear me out, is honestly the color grading. Because let's say,
Yeah, I could see that.
in like tier maker, right? It's auto defaulted where your top of the tier is like, dark green or light green. Then it kind of continues to go down where you get to red, which red is considered dog shit, right? And it's the same thing with like Metacritic where you have your greens, your yellows, and your reds. If they just adjusted the 70s to be green and made the 60s to start be yellow, I think that could maybe open up eyes a little bit more. It's like, okay, 70s is not too bad. You know what I mean? Because I mean, like a game in the 70s is
Have like a dark green.
yeah,
green,
just adjust
lime
some color.
green.
I know that seems dumb to say,
I mean, it makes sense though.
but it's just like that's how things are kind of on. That's just how things are graded on this different like color scale and stuff. But then also something I thought about, and for the people that fall into this category, you're justified. I get it. You're justified, but I still don't think you are justified to like completely shit on a game for being a 7 out of 10. And it's those people that have the mindset of, I don't have a lot of time to play games. Why do I want to play a 7 out of 10 when I can play a 10 out of 10? If that's the case, go play your 10 out of 10. Enjoy the little bit of gaming you've got. That's fine. But like, you know, trashing on a 7 out of 10 game that's still a fun game. It's just not a masterpiece. It's like, that's dumb. Like it's still a fun game. It's still worth playing, whether if it's at a sale price or playing on Game Pass or whatever. It's not a trash game. I just don't understand the mental block that gamers have of where we see something in the 70s or the 7 out of 10 and it's considered bad. I just don't get it. It just blows me away. And then because it raises the question of what should the numbers actually be.
See, you saying that makes me think of there's a game that just came out on Game Pass either today or yesterday called Another Crab's Treasure. And it's a Souls-like game where you play as a crab. And all I can,
What?
Yeah, no, it's a thing on Game Pass.
Sounds awesome.
And it's a thing where I'm just like, this would probably be a 6 to 7 out of 10 game, and it's on Game Pass. And some people will have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
And other people will never touch it.
Yeah, exactly. The people that's going to play it, they're probably going to have fun with it in some capacity. You know, you can find fun with it. You can find fun with the game.
Well, like, I was just looking up a couple like Metacritic scores for games that came out because they were ones that came to my head, and I'm like, I remember these scoring relatively similar. And it's also the thing of like, there's the obvious bias on like for Metacritic of like some games they're fine. They should be like a 7 out of 10 game. There's nothing. It's like overall, it may not be the most enjoyable. It's a bog standard. Nothing special about it game. That's pretty much your 7 out of 10 at its core. But then you have games that come out that are just broken. I was looking at it. Redfall came out 54%. And the thing is,
Shout out to Redfall.
well, there's a reason why I bring this up. Because Redfall, it comes out, it's a broken game. There's nothing, like the game doesn't hardly functionally work. It's like,
It looks as if it was presented to us.
yeah, and it's like it was like basically Microsoft and Xbox had to come out and apologize for it and say, we are going to work on this and fix this, and this should not have happened. That scored a 54%. Then we have Forspoken, a game that's just, it's not a great game.
No.
It's a fairly bland open world game. Comes out, scores a 63. It barely scores higher than a broken game that doesn't work. But the game's, I mean, it's fine. It's a generic game that comes out.
Has at least interesting combat mechanics.
You'll have a lot of fun with traversal.
Yeah, it's like, it's a game. It's not going to be for everybody.
Yeah.
But it's one of those where it's like the disparity of like 10 points between a game that's barely playable and a game that's just most people probably aren't going to enjoy.
Yeah.
The fact that that's like 10 points and like Redfall was one of the most broken like games that came out that year that was like nobody had fun with. Mm-hmm. But like the fact that which it probably isn't in contention for like 5 worst games come out that year, but it's probably on the long list of 10. Mm-hmm. And it's like the fact that you have like that there, and then like other games come out that score like a 70, and that's the realm of comparison where a game like I don't know, but say a game scores a 72.
Yeah.
That game is closer to Redfall than a 10 out of 10 on Metacritic scores, and that's what people probably look at it as. Is the game, the fall from grace is so much more drastic than it is from something that is just unplayable.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's like it's one of those weird things where it's like when you actually start looking at scores, because that's why I was looking at it. I was like, let's look at a bad game that should deserve a bad score for what we got, and then compare like I mean, hell, most years the like top of the line game of the year generational game, it's like a 94.
Yeah.
And the fact that you could be further away from that by scoring like a 75 than one of the worst games to come out in the last decade, even. It's wild that that's the scoring system that we have. But it's like because they won't give games lower ratings than that. They use like 70 is what is considered by a lot of people, and I think even some of these reviewers, 70 is like 50 in their mind, which it shouldn't be that way.
So more or less, what we're saying is we're looking at like a 1 to 5 scale, but they're using 5 to 10 instead.
Yeah, basically, that's basically correct. Yes, because like I just genuinely don't understand. I don't understand like the mindset on, because basically what you just said, what you both just said is accurate as hell, and I don't understand it. I don't understand why that is the approach. Because like, all right, so for the sake of like what I want to do for this topic, what would you rank Redfall on a 1 to 10?
Like,
I've only written 2 things on this list: 10 being masterpiece, 1 being unplayable. Where would Redfall?
Redfall would probably be a 3.
Okay, so what would you call like the 3?
What do you mean?
Like, what would you like a 3?
What
ranking,
would a 3 stand for?
Yeah, what would a 3 stand for? That correct? Thank you, Zach.
Like for that example there, it's I mean, essentially it's a game that comes out. It's not fun to play. All of the mechanics and everything are broken. Everything that was like said to be in the game, yeah, some of it's there, but
so just
every
very, very bad game.
Yeah, it's just a bad game. Like core mechanics don't work.
Broken but working.
Yeah.
So
It's a game that you can play. It's not gonna be fun. It's not gonna be enjoyable. None of the mechanics actually work.
So like, let's say 1 unplayable, 2 god awful game, 3 very bad.
Yeah, that's
Would that
fair.
would that be fair?
Yeah, I mean, I would, yeah.
So what would be 4?
Tolerable.
Tolerable. Okay, that's fair. I think 5 is very fair to just say meh.
Mid.
It's mid. It's mid. It's literally mid.
Mediocre.
What would 6 be? Just like, would 6 be like meh or
I'd say 6 is just kind of fine.
fine? And then 7 can be good.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd say, yeah. 'cause
Okay or good.
I would say a 7's okay. Because in my mind, a 7, I will have fun with it, but I will probably not remember it for being good, just for enjoying it for some reason or another.
Okay. I would say 8 can just be very good and 9 be amazing. Would that be fair? I think that's a fair scale.
I would say an 8 should be 8. An 8 is gonna be like a really good game,
Yes.
and then a 9 would be your most years game of the year.
Yeah. And then 10 your masterpieces that happen every once in a while.
Yeah, 10 is
Shout out to Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah, 10 is like it's your game that it comes out and there's no question
Right.
that it is.
10s are the games that come out and they're just ahead of everyone by shots and miles. They're the games that when they come out, other games start replicating stuff. Like I consider Apex having a 10 level mechanic, and the respawns are battle royales, because almost immediately all the other battle royales started using it.
Yeah. And honestly, that's actually another way to look at it too, is you can look at a game from on a 10 to 1 rating about where it falls, but you can also look at it for its respective genre.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think there's a couple different ways to look at it. Like, what does it do for the genre?
Yeah.
And then what does it do in general?
Because if you're looking at it like that, there's one game that has probably changed the way developers have looked at games for like the last 10 years or so, more than anything other, and I fucking hate it. Fucking Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
I hate
Every game
I
announcement
hate-
had that Breath of the Wild
I
moment.
hate what that game did to developer. Everybody wanted to make a Breath of the Wild game.
True.
Everybody had to change their game to be like that.
So many game trailers that would end or have been somewhere in the middle or towards the beginning of that moment of the main character standing on a hill and showing the world the Breath of the Wild moment. It changed gaming. You're right.
See, the only ones I enjoyed of that was Outer World 2's version of it because that was just an entire satire trailer.
That's fair. That's fair.
Not even just like that moment in it. It's like the amount of games that just they tried to clone like the gameplay loop in the world.
Yeah.
It's just that bugged me so much.
That's fair because that happened to a lot of games, man. That happened to a lot of games. So I feel you.
Because like another game I think that's more on the not as talked about side as would be Vampire Survivors. I mean, overall, I mean, I would probably rate that game like an 8 or something. But in terms of like how it affected an entire genre, it started a genre, so it's a 10 on that alone.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
For it just being what it was, it's probably an 8. But for its impact on the industry, it's a 10.
Yeah.
The amount of those games that have come out since then.
Right.
It
right.
created the entire genre, so.
Yeah, that's fair, and that's a phenomenal way to look at some of these games. There's a different way to look at it. You know what I mean? There's a different way to kind of grade these things. So yeah, so 10 masterpiece, 9 amazing, 8 very good, really good, 7 okay or good, depending on how you want to look at it. 6 fine, 5 mid. It's middle of the pack. 4 tolerable, 3 very bad, 2 god awful, 1 unplayable. I think that's fair, and you can throw a 0 in there if you just want to really just drive home that this is ET.
Dumpster fire.
This is ET. Bury the game.
Yeah, because I mean,
In fact, I'll write that 0 is ET.
I was going to say for years we've been talking about how 7 out of 10 games. There's nothing wrong with a 7 out of 10 game. That's because a 7 out of 10 game is still a good game on its, or it's still a decent game that has,
Or at the very least, it has some good aspect to it that you're going to enjoy.
Yeah, it's like it's a game that like probably not going to be for everybody, but it's going to have its decent fan base that likes it for what it is.
Yes. I mean, I've got plenty of 7 out of 10 games throughout my life that I've played and I've really enjoyed. Like, they're fine. You know, I have fun with them.
I have plenty of games that are 5s, but in my mind, there's 7.
Hey, as long as you enjoy it, you know, as long as you enjoy it, that's all that matters. I definitely have my games that are like probably a 3 or
Conquer?
No,
Yeah,
relax.
no.
That game's amazing.
Hey, you can't suddenly adjust the scale
I'm
that
not.
we've just determined because of your
Whoa,
feelings for the game in
Whoa.
particular.
Conquer is not a bad game. Conquer reviewed well. Both of them did. Okay,
But there was 3 games.
Yeah, shout out to the Pocket Tales game. Yeah, shout out to the Game Boy game. But Bad Fur Day and Live both reviewed well. I mean, they're good games. They're not masterpieces. Now, I wouldn't even, as much as I love them, I wouldn't even realistically call them amazing games or even an 8. They could argue for an 8 just because it is stupid and funny and you can just turn your brain off and you can beat the game in a single day. You know, so it's just a good afternoon just to laugh and just enjoy something so stupid. Really, I'd say they're like a 7.
I think that's the definition of a 7 out of 10 game.
Yeah, it's a 7. It's a 7. I mean, you could
That's how we've been-
argue an 8, but a 7 I think is fair.
You're sitting there talking about it. I'm like, dude, that's how we've been describing a 7 out of 10 game for the last 2 years.
I think 7 is very fair.
So are we getting a board and making that like a larger size thing?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I have no problem. You know what? Shout out to Tyler in chat. Tyler, I need a banner.
Well, we don't need a banner. We just need like a board.
I need a banner. I need a small banner over here showing how the way that we're going to be reviewing games going forward here at Gamestetic. So, but yeah, shout out to Tyler in chat. Appreciate the banner, my friend. Also, you know what? I know you guys don't give a shit about football, but I want you guys to know, man, big shout out to Tyler for the draft special. On Thursday, that man was working. And, dude, it was fantastic. So, for the entire draft, that whiteboard that's, set beside Zach, we were doing our own pick announcements because we were getting the picks like minutes ahead of the TV. Right?
Okay.
Minutes ahead, we were getting them. So whenever the pick would come up, Tyler would very crudely draw the team logo, and like write a bunch of other stuff for who the player was. Man, it made the show fantastic. So big kudos to Tyler. He did a great job. There was a lot of comedic elements in there where like he drew his Buffalo Bills. The thing looked like a fucking hamster. Like I don't know, he's not an artist, but it was great. And when we talked about it later, me and the boys, Tyler's just like, y'all were pressuring me to go fast, and it made it even better because I was just like, come on, Tyler, hurry up, we got to announce the pick. They're about to announce it on TV. We got to be ahead. No, it was fun, man. Shout out to Tyler. Tyler crushed it. That was a fun evening. Next banner is going to be a banner of our 2 hats with "Yes, John, we have hats." Shout out, man. Appreciate that. Appreciate that. But yeah, 7 out of 10 game. Nothing wrong with it. If it's 7 out of 10, don't be disheartened. Still give it a try. You know what I mean? Still that 7 out of 10 might be a 10 out of 10 to you.
I was gonna say, typically, I mean, like we've said before, and I've said multiple times already on just this show. 7 out of 10 game. That is going to be probably 80% of the games that come out in the year. It's like, because there's too many games that come out now. Most people are going to try to hit the AAA games or like the games that review the best throughout the year. Not everybody's going to hit the 7 out of 10s.
Yep.
And the 7 out of 10s are what are realistically carrying the industry.
Yep, those are the main ones that we see every day that get forgotten.
Yeah, a lot of games being released all the time. In fact, we're about to hop over to games like an early access to kind of watch for and stuff like that. I mean, some of the games that I have picked out to shout out have literally come out within the last 2 weeks. That are, so I mean, like shit comes out all the time. 7 out of 10s come out all throughout the year. I mean, it carries the industry. These 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10s don't carry the industry. They just don't. So I mean, 7 out of 10 is fine. That's the bottom line. And there's nothing wrong with it. People that say there's something wrong with it, there's something wrong with you. Go back to your Call of Duty and your AAA experiences that you play for 20 minutes and get off.
Is Call of Duty still a AAA experience?
Yeah.
Tell you what, it's a 7 out of 10 experience.
It's a 7 out of 10 experience. That's right. Jesus Christ. Oh man, that's funny. That's great. That's